Jason here in Ralstown. Hope you're all keeping well, staying safe. Today I've got a classic, maybe not ideal for a summer's day, but it is nice outside. But the weather we get here in Ireland, you know, it could be raining in the middle of the summer. So it's rhubarb crumble. Again, I keep saying it and I'm not apologising for it. There is thousands of different recipes. And rhubarb crumble is I wouldn't say an acquired taste, but some people like it sharp, some people like it really sweet. Some people make it with white sugar, some people make it sort of like a Muscovado sugar. Some people do self-raising flour. I do plain flour and a wee bit of baking powder. Rhubarb is, I say, the recipe I'm going to do here is 800 grams of rhubarb. But if you have a kilogram of rhubarb or 600 grams, it's fine. Don't go out and buy more. You can still make this, but you know, play about with it yourselves. But I'll give you sort of the core way of making it and the basic ingredients, and then you can take it in whatever direction you want. So first, I'm just going to wash my hands. As I say, I hope you're trying the wee videos out, and do let me know how they're going. It is good to know. So, I say rhubarb crumble Rhubarb and Apple Crumble reminds me of school and best desserts I ever had. They might have just been tinned apples and bog standard topping, but always remember them, love them. So right, what I'm just gonna, first job I'm gonna do is, that's the rhubarb. I've just washed it, I've cut it up into chunks and I've just washed it. So there's a wee bit of water in the pot, in the colander there. So I'm gonna put it in here, just in the saucepan. So you always want a wee tiny bit of water, just to start it off. That is clean water. That just starts it. And then, I say that's about 800 grams of rhubarb. I'm going to put, some people put cooking apples into it. I think that makes it even more tartar. So I'm just using Golden Delicious. They're slightly more sweeter. And there's a serious amount of water actually in rhubarb. So this gives it a wee bit of a body. But, you know, when you baked it and the rhubarb mixture bubbles up through the crumble, and then you get sort of wee crusty bits and these sort of gooey bits, it really is lovely. It really is lovely. So I just, you know, use the Bramley apples if you want, there's nothing wrong with that. So just cut them you want them in the big chunks. You don't want them too small, they just break down into, you'll end up with liquid. So, big chunks. And I say this would probably be, that's maybe a full kilogram there now. So we need quite a big dish. And sorry, without repeating myself, people's personal choices. I'm going to add whatever sugar I think is right for this rhubarb. Always add less, because you can always add more if you think you need to. If you put in too much, you can't really go backwards. So, for a kilo of your fruit, small bit, a tiny bit of water. This is a dessert spoon. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, probably 4. I'll work out the exact, you know, the amount that is, and I'm just going to put that on a very low heat. You just want that to stew. I'm just going to put a lid on it as well. Sorry, I've left something out of there. I'm just going to put, I say it's an optional extra, just a wee pinch of cinnamon. I'm not a great cinnamon lover, so I just like a wee tiny pinch, nothing more than that. Put the lid on it, let it stew. And the important thing about stewing is don't take it down to a liquid. Sorry, there's my dog, if you have introduced to him before. That's Archie. Good boy, now you stay out of the way. Okay, so, sorry, back to the rhubarb, sorry for the distraction. don't let it stew and stew and stew. You'll just end up with pulp. You don't want that. You want texture in it. So that'll probably take 5 minutes, but we'll give it a stir every so often just to make sure. But you want lumps in it. You want good texture in there. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make, and I say, I'm going to leave the sugar over there. We're going to taste that later on. It might need more sugar, but we'll decide that shortly. Okay, so we're going to make the topping. Right, all it is plain flour. So that's just plain flour. Some people use self-raising flour, but that's plain. Again, another thing people use is sort of soft brown sugar, caster sugar. I use Muscovado sugar. So again, these amounts will be on, on the website. And then another wee thing is oats. Optional, actually, you don't have to. So I've got some cold butter in the fridge. Unsalted butter. And what we're going to do is we're just going to grate this in again. You don't want it soft. Just grate the butter into it. Another nice wee addition to this would be some orange zest. And then you could put some walnuts in it. You could put some almonds in it. Ground almonds is nice as well. But obviously, if you have a nut allergy, it's best staying away from it. So just cold butter. And again, I nearly forgot the baking powder. You could use self-raising flour, you could use plain flour. There's, as I said, there's loads of different recipes. So that's that there. And we'll just add just a wee half a teaspoon of baking powder. It just gives it a wee lightness. You don't need any more than that. Just half a teaspoon. Right, and we're just going to rub this in. And the thing about a crumble, it doesn't have to go to a fine mixture. You want wee lumps in there. And I think the brown, the dark brown sugar gives it that sort of almost toffee type topping to it. And when that when the rhubarb bubbles up and mixes with that, it really does give it a lovely lovely chewy sides to it, if you know what I mean. You'll know what I mean when I show you at the end. So just rub this in. Again, you don't want the fine texture if you're making pastry. And this is probably the opposite of making pastry. To me, really work it. I'm not being too light with this, just rubbing it gently between it. I'm really pushing that butter into it and almost making like wee nuggets. And they're the good wee bits. So that's nearly it there. You don't want it smooth. And what I can do as well, just to follow the flavours through, I'm just going to put a wee pinch of cinnamon into that as well. Not a lot, just a tiny wee bit. So that's that. That's ready. And then we'll just add our oats. And that's your topping. That's how simple that is. And again, you can see there's lumps in there, but that's what I want. Lumps of butter, wee lumps of sugar that haven't mixed. That's ideal. Okay, so we'll just go over and have a look at the rhubarb, and we'll give it a wee mix if it needs it. I can hear it bubbling, so that's a sign, but it actually hasn't done much, but it is starting to bubble in there. So just let the sugar go to the bottom. And I'd say this will probably make, that dish, there's a good 6 or 7 portions in that. But we'll let that stew down. But again, I say, you want it chunky, you want it lumps in it, you want sort of good texture in there. So we'll come back to that in a few minutes and we'll put it together, okay? Right folks, this is maybe 10, probably 15 minutes of stewing, but it's the lowest heat I can get on the stove. I just want to show you what you want it to look like. Is you see the water, there's a lot of water in rhubarb, but it's just starting to break down. And that's it, you don't want it to go any further than that. And I have to apologise, I said dessert spoons of sugar, I meant tablespoons. So there's 4 tablespoons of sugar in there. I've tried it. I didn't have to add any more for my personal taste. But if you think you want to add more sugar to it, feel free. So that was 4 full dessert spoons. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drain it because there is an awful lot of liquid in there. But I am going to add some of it back in. I say that's probably a full kilogram of fruit. And I've got the oven set for 160 degrees. This is one that you don't want to cook too fast because it'll just bubble up, but you want it to sort of start to come up through the thing. So that's that. If you look how much liquid has come out of that, there's loads of flavour in that. I mean, that is, if you had a nice cream machine, you could turn that into a lovely sorbet. And at this stage, if you wanted to add more sugar to it, just sprinkle it on. There's no harm done. I'm just going to have a wee taste of it, but I think it's alright. Actually, I'm going to add another. Because it hasn't broken down, you need to be careful with this. When I first tasted it, I thought that was sweet enough. Because all the sugar's in the syrup, if you know what I mean. But the more it breaks down, the more bitterness comes out of the rhubarb. So I'm just going to add another sprinkling. So that's probably 5 full tablespoons, not dessert spoons as I said earlier, of caster sugar. So I'm just going to add a wee bit of the liquid back in. You don't need too much because there's still plenty of liquid in that. And just right, okay, just sort of to recap, there was 200 grams of plain flour, there was 100 grams of Muscovado sugar, there was 50 grams of oats, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and 100 grams of unsalted butter. So that's it. So what you want to do is just make sure there's no real big gaps. You want it as level base or level top as possible. And I'm just going to get a tray because with this, it will bubble over. I hope it bubbles over. You want it to bubble over onto a tray so it doesn't ruin your, because it's just sugar. So then just sprinkle that on. And let it, the wee gaps, yeah, you want a level sort of top, but where it falls down in between the gaps is lovely. And I don't know about you, but I like as much crumble topping as base. But I think this is enough topping. Just spread it out to the sides. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. And that's it. I said about 6 or 7 people. I reckon there's about 8 people that could feed. That's it. So as I say, the oven's set for 160 degrees. Again, I reckon 35-40 minutes. You don't want it going too fast, and the bits of rhubarb will bubble up through the corners of the round dish, through at the edges, and it'll mix with the crumble, and it'll give you that sort of gooey texture. So anyway, we'll check it out again. We'll check it after 15 minutes, just to see how it's doing, and then we'll probably 35-40 minutes. So 160 degrees, and we'll come back to it later. Right folks, the crumble's had about 30 minutes now. I just want to show you what's happening in here. I don't know if you can see that, but look, that's what you want. It's bubbling over. It's started to form a crust. So I'd say that's probably another 5-10 minutes roughly, and that'll be ready. And obviously you couldn't eat that straight from the oven. And I think it's better to let it cool, a good 20 minutes, so it sort of mingles. The crumble goes into the rhubarb, and the rhubarb goes up through the crumble. So we'll give it another 10 minutes, roughly, and then we'll come back to it. But it's very, very nearly ready. Okay. Alright folks, it's had a good 40-45 minutes to crumble, and it's ready. And obviously you wouldn't be able to eat it now, because as you can see in there, it's still bubbling. It's, you know, that's just like boiling jam, that. So we're going to let that sort of sit. And a crumble you don't want to eat red hot. You just sort of want it more than sort of room temperature, in my opinion. Just nice and warm. It doesn't have to be boiling hot. So we're going to let that sort of sit for a good half hour just to come down. And I say all the juices will mix in with the crumble and all. The next thing I'm going to serve it with, I'm going to make no apologies with this. It's just custard. It's just instant custard. Can't beat it. Really can't beat it with crumble. And we're going to serve a really, really special ice cream with it from a maker just down the road here. Delicious ice cream. Every time we go for a cycle during the weather, if we're passing, their ice cream is second to none. He makes it himself. So, bird's eye custard, nothing to be ashamed of. They sell it all over the world, so they can't be wrong. Some fantastic ice cream. Let this cool for a good 35 minutes and then we'll dish it up. Right folks, here's the crumble here. This is cooled down 25-30 minutes. I say I can just touch it, but it's good and hot at the bottom. You don't want to eat it too hot because you'll just burn your mouth and you just won't taste anything. So right, I'm going to serve it up here. So just as much or as little as you want. It's not a big portion, but there's probably the same depth in rhubarb as there is in crumble. And if you want to look in there, I mean, there's still chunks. There's a wee bit of apple there, and there's still wee chunks of rhubarb in there. And I say they've sort of amalgamated together, just so you get a nice crunchy top. Then the crunchy top will go into the rhubarb, and then the rhubarb at the bottom sort of is just plain rhubarb and apple. So that's it, and I say we're going to serve this with good old custard. Everybody likes a bit of custard. Again, just follow the instructions for the custard on the packet. And then some lovely ice cream. Some ice cream here. This is just from a local supplier, Ben's Ice Cream Studio, just down in Antrim. And then we just take a scoop. Just take a scoop. I say in here we've got vanilla and honeycomb. So I'm going to go with the vanilla. Just a nice scoop of this. I say this is locally made in the shop down in Antrim, Ben's Ice Cream Parlour. And that's it. And then we'll just give it a wee dusting of icing sugar just to finish it off. And a wee sprig of mint. And that's it folks. Rhubarb crumble, Ben's ice cream down in Antrim, and some I nearly said homemade custard. I can show you how to make homemade custard one day. But listen, there's nothing wrong with that. So we're just going to taste it. We're just going to give it a wee taste. So you just want a bit of everything. Ice cream, sort of the crumble. That's lovely. Just the right amount of sugar in that. Actually, I'm very happy with that. It's not too sweet, and you get a wee bit of the perfume of the rhubarb, and the apple sort of balances up a wee bit, because too much rhubarb and too much brand new apples is just too tart. And that's it. I say Ben's Ice Cream Studio. Fantastic. He will deliver this time of the year during lockdown. But listen, give it a go. And I say, coming up, I've noticed on a lot of videos, there are a lot of them pudding based and dessert and sweet and sticky and calories. So we're going to do a few more healthy ones, a few salads, a few sort of main courses, a few fish dishes over the next couple of weeks. But listen, give that one a go. It really is, I say, 7-8 portions in there. I'm going to deliver this somewhere around to my mum around the corner. I say my son and daughter, maybe they might have some. They're shaking their heads as if yes they will. So that's it. Rhubarb crumble, Bird's custard, Ben's ice cream, perfect for a Sunday. Okay, take care, stay safe.